Receivables can be a commodity that is sold for a fraction of the value of the debt. They can also constitute an asset, which creditor can offer as a security to someone who in turn lends him a loan. The transactions involving receivables will be discussed today by my guest, Daniel Smarduch, attorney at law, partner at Wardyński & Partners Banking and Project Finance team, who has been dealing with such transactions for 10 years. But we will start with a few words about the condition of the Polish economy. Welcome in program News from Poland, Business and Law, addressed to foreigners acting as board members in Polish companies, foreign investors in Poland and their foreign advisors. The epidemic state declared due to COVID-19 is still in force in Poland. The requirement to wear masks in confined spaces in public places is also still in force. However, fewer and fewer people follow it. People wear face masks when shopping in stores and in shopping malls. However, in cafes and restaurants, they are usually worn only by the staff. And in Warsaw, pubs, bars, clubs and discos, even the staff do not wear masks. There is a growing conviction that the next wave of the pandemic, even if it comes, will be flat and will primarily affect those who could not or did not want to undergo vaccinations. This is a small group of people. Despite this, there are no signs of mass returns to offices. Employers are trying to implement a hybrid model of work, for example, 3 days a week in the office and 2 days at home. But employees prefer the system: if you want to, you work from the office, and if it does not suit you, you work from home. And such a system is implemented in practice because employees make individual arrangements with low-level management in their teams. Usually, it results from the fact that they do not want to waste time and money on commuting to offices and prefer to work at home rather than in the bustling open space. As a result, the demand for offices, recorded from the beginning of this year, is the lowest in 10 years. In Warsaw, at the end of the third quarter of this year, the vacancy rate was 12.5%, almost 3% more than a year ago. Despite the large offer in newly emerging office buildings, the interest in buildings under construction is low. In the years 2011-2020, the share of pre-lease contracts in total demand was 20%. Currently, it is only 10%. This situation discourages developers from investing in new office buildings and banks from financing such investments. In 2-3 years, this will result in a supply gap. Now I will give the floor to Daniel Smarduch, who will talk about debt trading.
Hello everyone, I'm going to talk to you about receivables, an asset that is present everywhere in business world. This is an asset which could be a problem for some, but at the same time it is an investment opportunity for the others. We will be talking about how healthy and performing receivables could be used to obtain financing from investors. Later, we will also discuss how non-performing claims serve as an investment opportunity in Poland. But first, why is this important? Poland is a large and rapidly growing economy. There are large volumes of receivables generated every month. Consumer and SME financing from bank and non-bank loan providers, mortgage loans, hire purchase contracts, leasing agreements, corporate financing, and last but not least, trade receivables. These add up to a receivables market worth billions of euros. To give you an example, there is around 4 billion euro of new receivables every month, taking into account credits and loans for households only. For the creditors that have such assets on their books, this may be a way to obtain financing and boost liquidity and development. For investors, on the other hand, those assets could present an opportunity and help secure position when extending financing. A useful tool to facilitate usage of receivables is assignment, sometimes in form of a true sale. This enables transfer of receivables or a whole portfolio from the creditor to a third party. A transfer of this kind is generally allowed under Polish law, with few exceptions. Restrictions on transfer include statutory limitations of transfer of receivables. There have been a few cases of this, for example, receivables towards public hospitals, or contractual limitations agreed between the creditor and the debtor in the underlying agreement. These must be verified in each case as they depend on the underlying documentation. Let's start with receivables financing. This type of financing could be structured as a loan granted against the value of receivables with security over those rights, simple recourse, non-recourse factoring, or as a more elaborate true sale securitization program where the funds advanced by the investors are used by the SPV to acquire, for a price, the receivables together with credit risk. SPV then repays the investors from the underlying payments received from the underlying debtors. For the creditors, this is an interesting way to obtain additional funds and convert illiquid receivables on their books into cash in their bank accounts. These days, a variety of types of receivables, secured, unsecured, types of debtors, consumers, SMEs, corporates, as well as some types of creditors, online shopping site, bank or non-banking lender, manufacturer, or even types of products, buy now, pay later versus simple cash loan, attract not only large investment banks, but also private equity funds and investors looking for better yields. Servicing portfolio in Poland, with a few exceptions, is generally unregulated, and notification of debtors about the assignment is not essential for effective transfer. Consequently, it is possible for a creditor who transferred the receivables to remain the servicer and maintain contact with their customers. But what about those receivables that don't pay? Those where the creditor has already tried and failed to recover any money. Well, those assets could also represent value for entities with adequate know-how and tools. So it's still possible for a creditor to recover a portion of the debt by selling those claims to investors, professionals who, by putting in effort and time, are willing to wait longer for the payment, could turn such non-performing receivable into a performing asset. There is quite a well-developed market for management of non-performing receivables with professional providers of collection services as well as investors acquiring NPL portfolios of receivables from banks, non-banking lenders, telecoms, etc. The biggest and most active companies in this field manage receivables worth more than 25 billion euro. The most popular asset classes include consumer unsecured credit and mortgage loans, but there are also SME and corporate portfolios or single tickets traded on the market. As for the investment structures in NPL transactions, there are no instruments like GACs, HAPs or bed banks which you may have seen in other jurisdictions. Nevertheless, there is a specific Polish form called a securitization fund, which is often used as a purchasing vehicle. In the case of banking portfolios, such vehicles are almost exclusive, which is driven partially by the tax regulation applicable to banks. What is important about securitization funds is their managing structure. The fund itself is just a collection of assets, which issues certificates to the investor. It does not have employees or directors. It is managed by another company, a fund management company, TFI, which is a licensed and supervised entity. Recovery is carried out by the servicer, which is another supervised and licensed entity in this setup. The investor is at the top, holding the certificate. Typically, the investor approves or makes decisions regarding the most important things for a fund, which portfolio to acquire, for what price, or which servicer to choose. Nevertheless, please remember that securitization funds have specific rules regarding governance, which do not always resemble typical corporate governance you see. What if one would like to service the portfolio themselves, using a company they already have, say, in other jurisdiction? Well, if you do not have a license from Polish regulator, you will not be able to manage a portfolio of the securitization fund. But there is no such limitation on servicing portfolios acquired by other types of entities, be it a foreign SPV or Polish corporation. We note that a proposal for a NPL directive has been prepared at EU level. When implemented, this may make it easier for foreign companies to service portfolios in Poland based on a single European license. On the other hand, there is legislative proposal related to Polish securitization funds and facilitating operation of EU securitization regulation. So changes to this sector are on the horizon and caution needs to be maintained.
Thank you for watching us. See you soon.